It's primarily a struggle for power. And I think we would be stupid indeed if we failed to see where the consequences of a supine surrender on our part would lead.
An insanity plea for Charleston shooter Dylann Roof will be a hard sell. We now know that he is a documented white supremacist, inspired by an organization whose rhetoric is becoming more and more mainstream. In a manifesto allegedly written by Roof that's now under investigation by the FBI, he says he chose to attack the Charleston community for its black history. He also says that he first became, quote, racially aware during George Zimmerman's trial over the killing of Trayvon Martin, and was led to the website of the Council of Conservative Citizens. It's a group with roots in pro-segregation movements of the 1950s and 60s, and it decries racial diversity. While it doesn't sport swastikas or pointy hats like other more recognizable hate groups, it does trot out the Confederate flag. And hateful language. The co-founder once called black people a retrograde species of humanity. Their newsletter often rails against black-on-white crime and believes in an endangered white race.
In 1954, the Citizens Council was established in the Delta, the northwest section of the state, where blacks outnumbered whites. The council's purpose, to preserve white political power by opposing integration. Council chapters soon spread across the state. Bankers, politicians, and owners of businesses joined the citizens' councils throughout the South. They punished people who supported integration or black voting rights by foreclosing mortgages, firing workers, or refusing loans to farmers. And they used their influence to push through laws that would ensure continued white domination.
But the CCC has distanced itself from the Charleston massacre, saying it unequivocally condemns Roof's murderous actions. But it does call the shooter's viewpoints legitimate grievances, and says that not addressing those issues is dangerous, which sounds more like a warning than a condemnation. And even though its membership peak of 15,000 was in the 1990s, the CCC still has its hands in politics. Former Arkansas governor and presidential candidate Mike Huckabee spoke at a CCC national convention in the 90s. And the group's current leader has donated money to Mitt Romney, Ted Cruz, Rick Santorum, Scott Walker, and Rand Paul, guys that want to be our president. Now, some campaigns are falling over themselves to return that money. Dozens of other officials across the country have ties to the CCC as well, including former Mississippi Governor Haley Barbour, and at one point a third of its state legislators. What worries many is that the CCC's rhetoric is becoming increasingly mainstream, especially when it comes to immigration, as anti-immigrant speech has made its way into the Tea Party and other far-right arenas.
When Mexico sends its people, they're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
It's an invasion. It's absolutely an invasion of our country.
They weigh 130 pounds and they've got calves the size of cantaloupes because they're hauling 75 pounds of marijuana across the desert.
But the CCC isn't alone. There are more than 500 white supremacist groups across the U.S. Since 2000, membership in these groups has exploded, especially since the election of the first black president. Many of the most recent mass shootings in the U.S. have been fueled by racism and committed by white supremacists, like the killing of Sikh worshippers at a temple in Wisconsin, the murder of 3 people in a Jewish center in Kansas City, and now the shooting of 9 black worshippers in Charleston. How can this country move on from its racist past when so many of its leaders won't?
I was born in Mississippi, in the United States, and I'm the product of my heredity and education and the society in which I was raised. And I have a vested interest in that society, and I, along with 1 million other white Mississippians, will do everything in our power to protect that vested interest. It's just as simple as that.
In 1954, the Citizens Council was established in the Delta, the northwest section of the state, where blacks outnumbered whites. The council's purpose, to preserve white political power by opposing integration. Council chapters soon spread across the state. Bankers, politicians, and owners of businesses joined the citizens' councils throughout the South. They punished people who supported integration or black voting rights by foreclosing mortgages, firing workers, or refusing loans to farmers. And they used their influence to push through laws that would ensure continued white domination.
It's primarily a struggle for power. And I think we would be stupid indeed if we failed to see where the consequences of a supine surrender on our part would lead.